Hey, Nate, I want to say thank you for jumping on the podcast today. So obviously, most people know my podcast is necessity versus commodity, right? The people I have come on, we normally have discussions around, are you a professional? Are you a business owner? Do you have an offer? A lot of people are in the online space, and you are one of those individuals in the online space, and you're a director of sales for a very large company, WarriorBabe. You oversee a team of 35 people. You also have a long history in the industry, going back a good few years. You have a lot of really good experience. Ironically, you and I have been connecting, kind of crossing paths all over the place online, right? Commenting on stuff. And, one of the things that really stuck out to me is online, everyone has their own opinion, perception, their own realities. They all speak whatever out. You have to kind of discern the difference between, hey, is that someone's really true belief, or are they marketing that, or what point are they trying to get across? You and I've always kind of really agreed on certain aspects, and that's one reason why I think why we connected so well, and why I wanted to have you on the podcast is because you offer a very unique skill set, also a very unique viewpoint. I've been an online business owner. I currently am helping build out 2 offers right now, done high ticket sales for a lot of offers, got the marketing piece, the sales piece, but I've done sales management in the past for when I was working for health fitness centers, but I've never done it in the online space. And it's a totally different animal out there. It truly is. I can't imagine how you do your job some days. So why don't you introduce yourself a little bit about who you are? I know I kind of just gave an intro, but kind of just talk about yourself for a couple seconds here.
Yeah, well, first off, thanks for having me. I think one of the biggest things that drew me to want to even do this was your perspective on things. I like to have conversations where I disagree with people and they disagree with me, and we can have healthy conversation about it.
Yeah.
But I also like to pick people's brains that think similarly to me, because like, I don't know about you, but I don't find a lot of people that do think similarly. I see a lot of people as like very individuals, and we all have our own experiences, worldviews, whatever. But yeah, I'm super excited to definitely discuss a lot of things online and all of that. A little bit about me. It's always a tricky question on where to go with that. But I started in the sales space, not in online sales, but just, the typical door-to-door stuff. In my sales career over the last 7 years, I've produced over 10 million in revenue for companies that I've worked with. And then now that's being multiplied by being director, manager, whatever, which is super, super fun to be able to pour out my education and experience to others and help them succeed and get their goals. I found that that's where my sweet spot is that's where I get the most energy from my day. So yeah, I think getting into the online space is a different beast than typical sales, like whether that's car sales or door to door, phone sales, even, when you're working for a specific company like solar. And what it really taught me to be is like resourceful with my resume and also with my skill set. Right. And so like using that resourcefulness within the industry is really, really valuable, and being able to position yourself even when you don't have the experience and whatnot, I think helped me on the trajectory that I've gotten to where I am today.
You said something there at the very beginning. I really appreciate. You said, hey, I like talking to people that have a like mind as me, but I also like talking to people that offer a different perspective. It's kind of a paradox there. I think there's certain aspects that we pick up from other people, and you said it earlier before even this, just our conversations. You said you like to push the boundaries. You like to kind of push past what is normal. And that's kind of the way I always was growing up as well, or taking my own path, right? Of the way that my brain works. It's very strategic thinking. I've been blessed with kind of the gift to be able to break things down very quickly and put them back together, or to see patterns a lot of people don't, and help optimize. It's one thing that made me a really good personal trainer. Just watching somebody's body, I could do that. And I can kind of do that with businesses as well. Some of the things that we see in the online space, it's very, the perception from some people out there, everyone has different perceptions. One of the things that you and I connected on was some of the problems that we see in the remote sales space when it comes down to the rep side. What are some things that you see being a director of sales? Like, obviously you're hiring salespeople all day long, right? What are you looking for? What is something that you see, if you see it out there on social media, you're like, hey, that's a red flag. That guy is or gal is not going to be on my team because of XYZ. What are some things there?
Yeah, lots to unpack here. There's a fine line between entitlement and confidence, and I think a lot of reps miss that. They fall on the entitlement side of things, where like you owe me leads, you owe me this. Like, if your company's not doing $3 million a month and I'm not working for you, and they've never even closed $1 million in their life. And
Right.
so it's like, I think people have this perception because of the marketing attached to online high ticket sales that you work 2 hours, you make 10K. Like, and like that, when that doesn't happen, it's the company's fault, it's the sales manager's fault, it's the leads, it's whatever. And I think what this industry really, really requires of the people in it is brutal honesty with self. And when we are brutally honest with ourselves, we can hedge ourselves at a very good offer, maybe not our ideal offer, but that's going to get us to our ideal offer eventually. And I think people in the sales space, especially reps, just think too micro instead of thinking on the macro scale. They're thinking on a month-to-month basis instead of years down the road.
For sure.
You asked quite a bit said quite a bit in there. So.
Yeah, and I think we sit right there, because I agree with you. You brought up kind of the marketing in that, right? And when I moved in the online space, marketing brought me into the online space, launched my own offer, 8K offer. And you're promised, hey, it's quick and easy to make 10, 40, 100K a month, doing nothing, living on a beach with just a computer, talking to some people and having a good old time, right? And in reality, that's not the case at all. And, we've seen a lot of marketing, towards, hey, you sick of your 9-to-5 job? Come do remote sales and you're going to make 50K a month. You can work 3 to 4 hours. You make your own schedule. It's piece of cake. There's nothing to it. Now we're seeing a big push with DM setters for that, or a little bit of both, right? And I do think you're right. It's setting up some really poor expectations, right? Because there's some of the sales individuals too. Like, if you said, look in the mirror and be honest with yourself, and that really hits home, because it's funny, some of these sales reps, they can look at someone's marketing and go, oh, that's a bunch of garbage marketing, right? But you can't look at the fact of what you sold yourself into doing this and think it's going to be a piece of cake sometimes. And like, hey, if I'm going to take an offer, if I'm just expecting to have calls automatically booked on my calendar, that's fine. But that job is going to be limited. That job is going to offer a lot of things that might not help you get where you want to go. You might have to put in some different legwork. And it really is interesting with kind of the perception out there. You kind of, bringing up like entitlement. You and I both know there's a lot of reps out there that say, hey, that's a really bad offer, or someone posts about an offer and people just blast it and crash it. And but then on the other side, you can have someone that does the same thing. Hey, I just got offered a position for an 8K or a 8-figure business, but I'm not going to do sales meetings, so I'm not taking the offer, right? Like,
Yeah.
So we see that out there a lot, like talking about the entitlement. Now, looking at a sales rep, what are your expectations for a sales rep when you're bringing them into WarriorBabe?
Oh, they're really high. And I communicate that on the front end. Like, hey, this is not a place where you're just going to coast and not get trained and not get better. This is a place where I'm pouring all of my time and energy to make you the most successful so that you can live the life that you want, right? This is not a place where it's the nomad lifestyle, honestly. And if that's what you're looking for, then we're just not a good fit, right? So setting those expectations on the front end, just from a culture perspective, our mission at WarriorBabe is way bigger than where we're currently at, and our vision for the company. It's a worldwide vision, and like, we can't do that on these turn and burn reps where they're just offer hopping and stuff like that. And so just setting those expectations culturally, we're looking for people that want to stay with us for 1 to 5 years minimum. Like, We want people to really build a career around WarriorBabe and what we do and buy into our vision. From a standards perspective, we expect a lot on the front end, and those standards get less and less as you get better and better. And so it's a very tiered approach, and some of these elite players, whatever that means, don't want to do the work on the front end with a brand new company that they've never worked for before with before, and that just doesn't make sense to me. Not even being open to it, or at least having a discussion, right? And
Right.
so like our expectations is you go to have every single morning huddle when you start with us. Every morning huddle, you go to all of our sales tactic trainings, which a lot of our closers and setters talk about how they feel like they wasted money on on a mentorship when they have the mentorship right here inside the company. And nothing wrong with sales mentorships at all. Like there's a ton of great ones out there that can really hone in skills. But I think that people have this perception of sales huddles and inside sales training and all of that because it's been done so poorly that it's left a bad taste. So there's this balance between entitlement on the sales side, but also shitty management on the business side that has led to this butting of heads between business owners, sales managers, and sales reps.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, and I'm somebody, and I know you're the same way. You're unapologetically yourself. Here's who I am. Here's what I offer. This is what I do. Here's if I'm working or coaching somebody, or if I'm managing somebody in the past, had my own business, whatever it may be. Here are my expectations I've set out for you. Here's how I expect this to be handled, so on and so forth, and coach the person up. And some remote salespeople, they're not in the remote sales to be in that mold. Or they've had a sales manager in the past on an offer that those daily huddles are 30 minutes, 60 minutes. And it really is everyone just sitting around. So what'd you do last night? Oh yeah, the Bachelorette was awesome. Did you, I was like, it is a waste of time, right? But that's not the type of meetings you're set up, right?
No.
Like if we look at some of these very large, very successful companies that are bringing in 100K, 500K, $1 million a month. They have systems in place that brought them to that point.
Mm-hmm.
Their sales team has systems in place they have to follow. It got them that successful, right?
Yeah.
The other thing is, if you have 35 reps on your team, if you don't have a meeting every day, how are you wrangling them together? It would be literally impossible to know what was going on. The business is going to fall flat. And so having those meetings are actually a foundation to make sure that you can make 10, 20, 30K on that offer as a rep, right? So looking at those meetings, like how do you break it down to make sure it's valuable and it's not wasted time, I'm not making sales, where it's, hey, this is actually what's going to make you very extremely successful today, this week, and every month going forward?
Yeah, I think what has led to my success in meetings is bringing, I think when we do those morning huddles, it brings humanity back to the position. Instead of our sales reps just being numbers, they're people. And so we do a lot of personal development work inside of our morning huddles, as well as like expressing wins and client wins and personal wins. Like we're really cheering each other on so we can form that like family kind of vibe inside of our organization as a, 10 to $20 million company annually. Right.
Yep.
And so like with that in mind, I want to make sure every single person on my team knows that they're valued, they're cared for, and that I'm going to do whatever it takes to improve their life while they're with us at WarriorBabe. We just had a gentleman on our sales team. He was with us for a month and he found another offer that's a better alignment with his career. And honestly, it was one of the easiest transitions possible for both of us because I actually want him to win somewhere else.
Yeah,
like
beautiful.
He was doing great on our team and top 5 on our team, and it's sad to see him leave, but at the same time, like I'm stoked that he's finding what he needs. And so I bring that energy into my morning huddles of I'm here to serve you guys. That's my position. And so my morning huddles don't have a specific formula. Some days it's going through the book study that I'm going through and teaching other people how I learn so that they can learn efficiently as well. Other times it's going into a specific sales tactic or concept that I am seeing as an issue over a broad variety of calls that I'm listening to, right?
Yep.
And so I just want to provide some sort of value every single time. If a meeting has no value, then I've wasted their time and the company's time. And so there's going to be some level of value for every single meeting. Will everyone get value in every meeting? No, right? But over time, they'll get value every single week, which is why they come back and they're excited about the meetings.
Right. And I think that's a big thing. I'm a big, talking Bruce Lee quote, be fluid, my friend, right? Like if you're too rigid, things break really, really easy. The moment some force is put on it, you have to be fluid and kind of move around. And having a team that big, you do need to have that fluidity happening. The key thing that you brought up though is you're humanizing everybody. And that is one of the biggest issues I have with the space, with some of these marketing tactics that are out there. And it goes right with the name of my podcast, necessity versus a commodity, right? So many remote sales reps are just viewed as a commodity, just a number, boom, 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 come and go as it is, where you're actually building a whole team there that every single person is playing a necessity role, right? And you're carrying, like you just said, somebody in your top 5 leaderboard is leaving and you're celebrating that.
Yeah.
Now, you know that individual is going to be better, but you're also going to be able to train another individual up. That speaks really, amazing of who you are as a person, because you see a lot of complaining out there of, oh, they left my offer, someone piped them and that sort of thing. And like, well, what type of confidence do you have in yourself? So let's look at, like, you have one of your top 5 guys leave. Do you replace them from somebody externally, or are you training people up to where you've already got a guy that you know is going to fill that spot, or guy or gal that's filling that spot really quickly? Like, how do you a top 5 individual might be pulling, I don't even want to throw a number out what it might be, but obviously you're bringing a lot of money in on a monthly basis. So how do you replace that?
Through process, right? Like, I know that the process that we've put in place works to get him to where he was, a month into working with us. He went through our process. He submitted himself to our process, even though he had experience before, even though all of these things, he submitted himself to the process and rose the ranks very quickly. And so I think, am I trying to replace him outside? Always. I'm trying to replace my top people always, from just a recruiting standpoint. If you're not recruiting, you're dying. And I take that really from, actually, one of my football coaches in college said, hey, we're bringing you on to we're always recruiting better talent to replace what we currently have, right? And so it creates that competitiveness, which I think is really, really healthy if done right in sales. And so, yeah, always recruiting to get better talent for sure. But I do know that our team will replace that just internally as well. So I think it's a both and, not an either or.
I'm glad you brought up like the sports reference. When we were talking earlier, and my brain always looks at this when I find out someone is going to wants to go get a position, and it could be sales rep, it could be anything, but isn't being a team player. I always look at sports as kind of that analogy to use, because if we use like the Patriots example, that's WarriorBabe, right? Then you got the owner. Now you being a director of sales, you're essentially Bill Belichick.
Sure. Yeah.
Your couple top sales guys are Tom Brady, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And so the thing about, and the reason why I use the Patriots example, not because I love the Patriots, I absolutely hate them, actually. No, but you can't hate greatness. But when you look at a system and process in place, right, you hear the Patriots way, right? And that was a huge thing. Now, yeah, they had some really good talented players, from Tom Brady to Gronk to trying to think of the linebacker's name, and some, anyway, yeah, Brewski. You have some very high level talent there, but you're only as good as the bottom guys as well. And that was the amazing thing about that team, and what Belichick could do. He could train everybody up to do the best of what they were best at. And then they were able to say, hey, this team is best at this, we're stopping that. And that's how they beat everybody, right? It's not rocket science, it's not magic. but it's just a
Mhm.
system in place. And I think remote sales, like you kind of talked about, some of the sales reps out there, which is completely fine, they don't want to go into that mold. Why does that mold excite you, and why do you want to be in that type of mold and be in the position you are?
I think it creates dynasties, just like the Patriots. So like without a process to create excellence from the bottom up, then like there's no there it's almost like throwing that spaghetti at the wall, right? And like taking the Patriots analogy even one step further, Tom Brady's obviously the top player that was on their team for a long time, and he constantly took pay cuts so that they could improve, right?
Correct.
And
Yeah.
and so like when I look at our top players, they're constantly taking cuts from a not a pay standpoint, but from their time standpoint to help improve the team so that
Yep.
we can all go in the same direction. And so when I see top players doing that and they have even less entitlement than some of the new people coming on, it really shifts the culture very, very quickly. Like, why is this top person helping me?
Yeah.
Why are they spending their time doing a role play with me when they could be making an extra $1,000 this hour, right? And that's just the culture that we have. And so when you have that, it's about way more than where we're at currently, and it's about the growth of the entire team for the future. And so looking at the long-term results instead of just so short-term. And I think that's what I keep getting back to in this season is a lot of people are too narrow focused on day to day, month to month, even year to year, that they're not looking at the long term goals for themselves or for a company and saying, yeah, this is not for me, even though the long term is for them, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
100%. And I'm glad you kind of brought up the legacy and kind of tied all of that stuff in, because I actually have had a few different conversations over the past 6 months with different coaches, different leaders kind of in the industry here, that the high ticket space, I think, is, we all see it changing.
Mhm.
And things are over the next year, I think 18 months are going to change a lot. Big actual companies like WarriorBabe, you guys have a brand, right? Like, you're very successful. You can take a Tony Robbins, right? These are brands that people know. You guys are going to stay there. There's going to be that next tier that are very successful individuals, but they're going to get cannibalized by a lot of the lower aspect. Or we see out of the top tier, sometimes people start shedding off and like, hey, I'm gonna go start my own business. It's way easier than continuing sales for you or whatever role it may be. And so then all of a sudden markets start kind of cannibalizing each other there. The legacy piece, and you bring up the short-sightedness. I think there's a lot of sales reps, I couldn't agree more. They have that short-sightedness. I'm going to jump to this next offer, but I'm going to constantly look for this next offer to get to this next offer to next offer, the one that pays me 30, 40, 50K.
Yeah.
Well, as you're making that jump, you are making a little bit of a reputation of yourself. That is a short-sighted kind of thought process. The other thing is, if you become somebody that is known as that, and all of a sudden as these offers start shrinking, which I think they will in the next year or two, now you're only going to have 2,000 offers. I'm just throwing random numbers out here. 2,000 offers, only 400 are going to be good. You're going to have only 1,000 reps for those 400 offers. And there's 2,000 really good reps. There's 1,000 really good reps out of job. 8,000 that are average reps that, good luck, you're not finding one. And the online space is looking more like a corporate world now, and you have to view it that way.
Yeah.
Hey, am I going to
That's the trajectory of it, honestly, is
agreed?
even with, if you look at like new legislation coming down the pike between 1099 and W2, like a
Yep.
lot of businesses are in trouble. A lot of salespeople are in trouble.
Yep.
We don't have to get really into that very much, but like there's a lot of things that will dismantle a lot of these online businesses, unfortunately. So
Yeah, and we don't need to talk about that, but yeah, I mean, and that's just one side of it, right? Just the legislation that's coming up. And I don't think a lot of people even have an idea about that. But just in a general, as ad costs are going up, it's harder to market, it's harder to stand out. It's one of the things why, having this podcast, how are you a necessity? How do you stand above? How are you a no-brainer, right? Like, everybody needs a cell phone, but how do you become an Apple that, hey, that's the only option I take? right? Like you as a director of sales, there are some individuals on your staff that are a necessity. They're not commodity. And I know all the individuals, you look at them as, a person and those type of things, but some of them are a lot harder to replace.
Yeah.
And how do you develop yourself? How do you stand out yourself? And if you're doing these things from jumping from offer to offer, that's you're showing, hey, I just want to be a commodity. Because a large business like yourself, I love the fact that you said, I want this to be their home for 1 to 5 years. I mean, that is a core aspect of you guys' success in business, bringing somebody on knowing they're going to be there for 1, 2, 3, 5 years, right? Because you can really develop that person, pour your heart into them, build them into very, high level success. If you had people jumping nonstop in and out of your offer, what would you really kind of figure that your success would be at? Like as a business, like how hard would it be to operate?
Oh, extremely hard. I mean, like just hiring in general, training is expensive, right? Because we're not making money. Yeah, there's lag indicators to make money in the future as a company.
Yep.
But like if there's constant overturn, which we do have that. I mean, we're
Yeah.
sales,
Oh, yeah.
right? So
Yep.
like although we bring the humanity into our team, there still is numbers and KPIs and all of that good stuff. But ultimately what that does for a company and for those individuals, it just slowly deteriorates culture, slowly deteriorates marketability, all of that, because we don't have consistency. And like just like going to the gym, there has to be consistency for you to get the results that you want, right? Yeah. And so like I think that's like a really good example is if you go to the gym once, you're not going to see the results. You go to the gym 365 days of the year, you're going to see some results, right? They might not be exactly what you want, but you're going to get closer to your goals. And the analogy I use with my team, it's like having a jar of M&Ms that has 365 M&Ms in one jar, and you take out one. There's not a big difference, right? But at some point, and for everyone it's different, at some point you notice a difference, right? If you take out one every single day. And so like that consistency piece is extremely important in sales, going in and just doing the work, even if you're not getting the results, going in and doing the work anyway. And it's cool because like one of the women on our team was on the chopping block because of lack of performance. It just is what it is. And the way she turned it around and said, you know what, you're right, my performance is bad, I will fix it right now, I'll do whatever it takes. And she did that. Like she became, the next week was the first one to hit bonus, like 3 days into the week. Wow. And has really positioned herself into the top 3 after being on the chopping block. And it was just because of consistency. I'm going to keep doing the same things because I know they're going to work. And I'm believing that my manager is telling me they're going to work. Yep. Right. And then just keep doing them over time and getting better and better every single day. And so companies like Apple obviously are attached to a really deep why, right? Think different. Yep. And Simon Sinek like literally blows that out of the water with his book. Start with why, but like that's really important. And not only from a company macro standpoint, but from an individual on the team as well. We start every single person on our team with their why, right? Why are you here? And why are you doing sales? Because if you're not attached to that, sales will be a vicious monster that spits you out in 3 months.
Yeah. Wait, I thought it was easy according to the marketing.
I mean, it is. Yeah, it's super easy.
But the mindset piece is huge.
Yeah.
And I didn't mean to cut you off there. I kind of threw a little joke at that because that is one thing. So many people think sales is easy, but in reality, every day is zero. You're starting over. Every call you get on, especially if you're new, and especially if you're even kind of getting into that median point, sales calls, you still get really emotional. Right? It's really sometimes hard to attach. And certain calls, you still get really emotional no matter what. Yeah. Right? Like I love coaching. That's in my blood. It's one of the reasons why I love roles where I can be coaching people just naturally and like to do it free. But even working with people, having someone, hey, Scott, I want to hire you for XYZ and that sort of thing. But when you're on a call, I'm on a call sometimes and like, it's just one of those conversations that you immediately connect with the individual.
Hmm.
And you can feel your emotions coming up, and that can throw you off your systems, off your process, those type of things. And all of a sudden you're being too friendly or an emotional state where, like that girl, just want to give her a huge applause, because when you're on the chopping block, you probably haven't been making money. You're stressed about that. Now you're stressed about your job. When you're on a phone call, the stress that you're feeling, oh my gosh, I had to close this next deal, otherwise I'm fired. That's a lot of stress. Just talking with someone, you're gonna just naturally clamp up. So the fact that she turned it around in 1 week and got that high, like that's amazing. I hope you need to tell her from me, congratulations, because
Yeah.
that's amazing. But it also speaks volumes of you as well. Looking at the mindset, let's talk about that a little bit of a sales rep. And I think it really does tie into also the buy-in of the rep to the company and their management, which is why doing sales calls, having a strong culture is so important. Because the moment a rep gets in their head, if they don't have somebody there, they're going to jump ship. We both know it, right?
Yeah.
So looking
We
at
see
the
that happen all the time. So
yeah. So looking at the mindset piece, how do you, obviously, what do you see it's important about it? We both know it's that, but how do you help like your reps when you see that, wow, you need to pull them out of the gutter, or they're, in quicksand and they're raising their hand like, oh my gosh, Nate, I need your help. What type of things do you do for them?
yeah, I think my background helps with that. So I've got my master's in clinical mental health psychology. And so being able to apply breath work and grounding exercises with them while they're stressed out on one-on-ones, and be like, hey, let's just take a deep breath here. Like, let's look at the big picture. Yes, our performance has been bad. That's fact, right? Like, let's detach from just our performance and say, let's look at the numbers. These things are bad. And then let's also look on the reciprocal. These numbers here, they're great, right?
Yep.
Like, these are metrics that I can work with, which is why you still have a shot. Right. And so it's a little bit of like, let's bring it back down. Let's take the emotion out of it. And we just have a really, really healthy conversation of, if emotions weren't here, what would you decide to do with yourself if emotions weren't here? Well, I'd probably be in the same position. I'd probably put myself in the same position. Okay. Now that we're on that common ground, what are we going to do to get there, to where you aren't in this position again, and can get out of this position? And so it's very logical, right? So we get the emotions out, and then we just use logic to inform our decisions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is where a lot of people fail. And that's it. Again, we're looking at all through human history, the path to success, the systems for success, they're all pretty much the same, right? And a lot of times we just get wrapped up our own brain and get thrown off course. Why it's so important to have a director of sales like yourself that's there to help, right? Or having a team meeting there to help. A lot of times a sales rep, when they're struggling, you said, hey, I've got metrics here that show that you're doing a great job. Mm-hmm. These metrics are causing a bad result though. So we need to fix these. We fix these. This is 30% of the problem, 70% you got right. But you get all freaked out, and it's pretty easy once you figure out, hey, this is the 30%. It's no different than like marketing or anything, right? If you're trying to lose weight, hey, you're doing 70% right. It's just 30% we need to fix. Let's get this in order. Looking at the legacy piece again, right? And the reason I'm bringing kind of back to that is remote sales is kind of, hey, free lifestyle, nomad lifestyle, you just travel all over and blah, 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 blah. But in reality, we are seeing that change with a lot of these companies, because they are actual companies now, but people still view it as, hey, it's this one person business or XYZ. And I think, and I love seeing that, businesses like WarriorBabe that are growing to that level of success, because they are a brand now. There are so many offers out there. WarriorBabe actually is a business. It is a company. She can sell that asset, walk away. You guys all still have jobs. You guys are all still going to be successful, who's ever running it, right? Yep. A lot of these offers, that's not the case.
Yeah.
There's
Not
no, it's not a company, it's not a corporation. It's really not a brand. If the owner goes, I'm done with it and walks away, everyone's out of a job.
Yep.
And that I think is going to be happening here in the next 12, 18 months as ad spends become way bigger. So I think things are going to thin out.
Mhm.
And so looking at that piece and your sales rep team, you're probably going to have some better pickings of some of the better individuals as time come up. So kind of a battle for the bottom, the bottom 10 slots will really become really important. Right.
Yeah.
How do you hire somebody, like your qualifications? So let's say you get 3 resumes this week, 3 people reach out to you, talk with you, they set up interviews with you. You're chatting with 3 of them.
Mhm.
What are you going by if you're filling one role?
If I'm filling one.
Yeah. And you have 3 people
Okay.
running for that one spot.
Well, I do interviews and you could ask anyone that I've interviewed in the last month, especially. I do interviews very differently. So all of my interviews are always group interviews. I think, like, especially for sales role, you can see if someone's going to thrive in high pace, high pressure environments, which is what sales is, right? Where we're doing calls back to back to back to back. We have to be on our toes. Prospects are throwing stuff at us we've never heard before.
Yeah.
How can I adapt to a always evolving situation? And so I do that inside of our interviews, right? I'll start all of my group interviews with just a blanket. This is our company. This is what we do. This is the role. This is the pay. Just general info.
Mhm.
And then I always tell them, hey, this is what we're looking for. Like I said earlier, we're looking for people that want to be here 1 to 5 years at minimum.
Yeah.
And also on this interview, not all of you will make it to the end. I will ask people to leave either for good reasons or for bad reasons, right? Either I'm asking you to leave because I'm offering you a position, or I'm asking you to leave because we're just not a good fit. And so they have that expectation right at the beginning of the call that you don't get the full interview. So, like, make every question count, make every answer count. And so what I'm looking for is people that can be adaptable in situations. Even the questions I ask are not typical sales questions. Like, I can work with people. I can't necessarily work with their closing percentages because they were on a different offer. They were on a different, like, they were tracking different metrics. Like, I don't care where you've been. I don't care where you come from. I care who you are.
Yeah.
And so that's the delineation. It's kind of a nuanced answer to your question. But ultimately, I also do a round of social hiring. So I don't know if you've ever done that on an offer or on an interview, but when you ask a question, when I ask a question, I pick my favorite answer and say, hey, if you can't pick yourself, who would you hire? And then they tell me someone, and then that person tells me another person, and then the other person tells me most likely the person that I liked, right?
Yep.
And there's, 2, 3 people that didn't get picked at all. And I ask them, like, why do you feel like you didn't get picked? And if they don't have attribution to why they didn't get picked, then, like, that tells me they don't have a good understanding of introspection and looking within and saying, I need to get better at this, this, and this.
Right.
And so then I just dismiss them, which it's very cutthroat, but at the same time, it's very, 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 very effective.
I don't view it as cutthroat. Actually, I really like that process. It's one of the things I'm trying to remember who the quote actually was, and it was kind of a whole, motivational rah-rah, 1-minute speech, basically wrapping up, of no matter where you're in life right now, the most loving thing I can tell you is you're not good enough. The reason why that's the most loving thing I can tell you is because you have the ability to change. Right. And it's not that you're flat out doing that, but you're obviously, those sales reps, they knew on that call that they weren't good enough compared to the other reps there. And I think that's a huge, really big benefit to the remote sales space. You never see anybody else. You don't know anybody else. We all see a picture of somebody. We don't know what their voice is, what their personality is, who they actually are. We have this preconceived notion. And all of a sudden you get in a room with 10 people, and all of a sudden you can tell the 3 that are up here, right? And the 3 that they're new. It's not anything wrong with where they're at. They're just where they're at. You don't judge, someone's chapter 1 to someone else's chapter 20. But when you're trying to fill a role, you're going to somebody that's at chapter 20, right?
Yeah,
And
or someone
working
that
that out.
has so much potential at chapter one. Like that chapter one is
Yes.
so freaking good that it's like, okay, I'll take a risk on you, right?
Yep.
And I think also what it's done for me is trust my intuition a whole lot more. Because like when I say, oh, I think this person is in my own head, I think this person's the best person for the job, and then that gets affirmed by 5 people on the interview, it's just like, okay, cool, I know what I'm doing, right? So it's
Yep.
those like it's those even those personal checks, and if I completely miss what everyone else is hearing, then I'm like, okay, let me go into this person that they're all saying they would hire. What am I missing here, right? And so it allows me to become a better hirer, better manager, because there's things that I can be missing too.
Yep.
But yeah.
I it's interesting, so out in the space, right? It's polarity in there. Hey, people only hire for this. No, screw that. They only hire for this, right? And you're not going off vanity matrix. Hey, what's your close percentage? Okay, you're the highest, you're hired, right? Now that is closing percentage is a vanity matrix, metric. It is. And you can manipulate that metric a ton.
Yes, you can. Yeah.
Um,
Which is why we don't even use that as a metric for KPIs.
correct. And I look at it with like a marketing funnel. We can tighten up that funnel a ton and not have any appointments set, right? We could have 100 people come in the next month, set appointments, even though saying 50% of them are not qualified,
Yeah.
right? But we have 100 book calls.
Mhm.
Now, we could tighten up that funnel and have on there, if you don't enter your credit card, give us $2,000 now that will be refunded or add towards your $8,000 product or $15,000 product, whatever you decide to purchase.
Mhm.
All of a sudden, instead of 100 calls, you only got 10, but those people are way more qualified, right? Now, if you're taking 100 calls or those 10, you would probably close the same number. But with the 100, you probably end up closing more because you're going to have some more opportunity there. So you actually bring in more cash value, right? And the reason why I bring that up, and you and I see it in the space of, we know that there's a lot of reps that are adjusting their close percentage by, oh, well, Nate told me he didn't have a credit card on him, so he's not qualified, and I just got him off the phone in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
That's why you can't go by a close percentage as a vanity number. Now, I'm working with one of the best sales coaches out there right now. He coaches around objections. He's amazing. I'm sure everyone knows I'm talking about Bill Walsh.
Yeah.
When you look at the closing percentage there, he's not worried about that. What he's worried about is kind of like what you talked about with that girl. Is she going to put in the work and get better? Because once we get you dialed in all these spots, the only result essentially becomes success.
Mhm.
And that's what I love with that key part there. It's the result. Now, I know that in a lot of people's marketing, they talk about sales, closing, things of that nature. You have UCM, JD Daily, Hunter. Those guys are amazing with like new reps coming in. Even reps have been in the space for a while, getting them up and on pace. I'm in UCM, 3.0. It's a great offer, great program. Everyone's a different chapter 1 to chapter 20. Now, the reason why I kind of bring that up, because if you have interview of 10 people, it's not that let's say you have somebody come from this offer and they're closing 50%, this offer they close 10%.
Mhm.
That person was closing 10%, you can tell if they're a vet and if they're going to be good. And that, I guess that's my point. Like, the people that stand out, they have the confidence, they have the mental game in check for the most part. The way they speak, the way they carry themselves, the confidence on a call in that situation is very different. It kind of talks about like, hey, tonality on a call, which I think is important because 80% of communication is nonverbal. Yeah. So how you carry yourself, so the confidence in who you are, which is why being unapologetically yourself is so important. Then having confidence in your skills, knowing you're going to get the result by what you're going to do, but also that work ethic to get better. When you can find those 4 inside somebody you're going to hire, you know they're going to be successful and you can pour into them. It's going to be an amazing result, right? So when you see, let's just say you have 10 people there, just quickly watching their body language, the way that they speak, what they're doing, what are some of those things that you're picking up on?
Yeah, it's a great question. There's quite a few things, right? Tonality is very big one inside of sales. For the most part, I have a very similar tonality for most of the things that I say. But then when it's serious, I'll slow down, get quieter, things like that. When it's, hope inspired, elevate a little bit, or things like that. So I'm looking at tonality. I'm looking at body posture as well. Like if I see someone on a Zoom interview where we're not in person and they're slouched, or I can see they're distracted, like it still baffles me. Like, why would you just be distracted while you're on an interview? Why would you turn your camera off and back on and back off and back on and back off? Like, doesn't make any sense. Also, unfortunately, I'm looking at their tech. Does your sound quality sound good? Because that's the sound quality that's coming through the prospects that we're putting on your calendar. If it doesn't sound good, are you open to changing that? Right. So these are like metrics that I'm not even looking for as far as body posture, but I am looking for confidence in answers. I'm looking for specificity in answers as well. So ambiguity is not something I love. I like people that are direct with their answers. So if I ask a question and I get a vague, ambiguous response, I will ask them a further question and they'll give me probably a more vague response. And then I'm just like, yeah, I don't think this is going to work, because you can't even answer my questions, right? And it's because you don't want to answer them wrong, and that's a fail on you. I'd rather you confidently say something and it be not the answer that I'm looking for, but that this is what you want, than for you to like try to manipulate this and give me the answer you think I want to hear. And I'm straightforward like that on calls. So it's just like there's quite a bit of different things that I look at, and even the way they present themselves, and the level of professionalism that they come to my calls, right? There's so many different things that I'm looking for on the very face value, and they say don't judge a book by its cover, but you can do that in sales, unfortunately. Like, if you present yourself well and you're confident, like no matter what monetary value you're coming from and whatever equipment, like that screams through the call, and I can judge that book by its cover. So
I love the book by its cover analogy, because it's exactly what the book cover was meant to do, is make you judge it to buy it. Right. And and we can use a lot of PC language around it, but that is the thing. I mean, you can judge a book by its cover. I don't think that's an incorrect statement at all. And people have to understand that, right? And I think that's on your social media, how you would show up to a call like this. It's going to be all the DM messages. If you guys have a 5-step process to get before even the interview, what are they doing, right? Like, these are the things that you're judging the book by its cover. And then if I show up and I've got underwear hanging off behind me, the lights flickering, like, I can't have someone show up to a call like that for my business. Sorry, you're done. And I do love,
I have terrible Wi-Fi. Like, if your Wi-Fi is cutting out and you're not telling me why it's cutting out, like, how can I hire you for an online business if you don't have good internet? There's a lot of those factors. And I think also you said something earlier that I actually really, really loved, is this. I think a lot of people have a fear around saying to someone, you're not good enough. Like, so many business owners and people just have like such a fear of saying that, because I think there's this stigma around, like, people already feel like they're not good enough, so why do you need to tell them that? Like, that actually empowers people. Brutal honesty empowers people. And if they want to use that as being a victim, that's on them. It's not on me. Right. And so, like, if I'm brutally honest, like, hey, at this point, you don't meet the requirements for this position, and that's okay because of XYZ, and I give them clarity on that, you're not good enough right now. That's okay. You can always come back. Cut your teeth somewhere else, right? You won't cut your teeth on my offer. And that's okay. I think removing the fear of that, like hurting someone's feelings, is really, really important in the interview process, because like there's a difference between being nice and being kind. And I'm going to be kind by being honest.
Yeah.
So,
Hey, Nate, you've had this big chunk of broccoli hanging out of your tooth this whole time. No, I'm just being sarcastic, but that's the difference between nice and kind,
yeah.
right? Like, oh, I'm not going to tell him because I don't want to, that's embarrassing, but let him speak with this big chunk of broccoli this whole hour, right? And that's really what you're doing. You're showing love and compassion by actually telling somebody, hey, these are the reasons why you don't make it. Here, you can go improve on this by doing this, this, this. Let's touch base in 3 months, 6 months, who knows,
Yeah.
you know, whatever it may be. And I think that's really huge. We are just past the hour. I know that we're kind of tight on time. I know we got a little bit of things here to kind of tighten up too. And I won't even be opposed to having a second one here. You know, one of the things kind of talking there of growth, of the skill set. You know, a lot of people in the space. If you know that I've been trained by Mark Van Muser, who worked with Tony, who was Tony Robbins' sales guy. I worked at, or I trained with NEPQ 3.0, UCM 3.0, the objection box. So I've been through a bunch of these trainings. Does that get me in the door automatically to work for you guys? Why?
Why?
Yeah.
Because all of that information is already online.
Yeah.
All of it. Right. So like, okay, now sell me. Now that you've gone through all those trainings, sell me on you. Right.
Yeah.
Like if you have gone through those trainings, then you should know how to market yourself, how to present yourself. You should know how to handle my objections in an interview. Right. But if you can't do those, then you obviously haven't gotten anything from your training. And that's huge. Like just because I have a degree doesn't mean I get a job.
Correct.
You know, and I think that's a big misstep for a lot of people is they think they have a certification or a training under their belt and that's going to get them a job. And it's because of marketing, unfortunately, for most of those, that they don't actually value the training. They value the piece of paper, which is the way our culture has formed them since they were a kid. They value the piece of paper, not the actual training or the knowledge.
Yeah.
And I think the further we can get away from that, the more people will actually be successful, which is why I actually love UCM so much. Because they really target that. And they are another course. I know they're not another course, but they are, right? They're doing sales training, they're doing networking, they're doing skills to be successful in this industry. But at the same time, they're also providing this, hey, just because you came in here doesn't mean you are owed anything. You have to go out and go get it. You have to actually apply what we teach. And only a few percentage of people will actually apply it.
Agreed. And that's why I asked the question. And that's the problem with the marketing, right? It's the same thing of the, hey, hire us, we get you 100 free lead, every single month. Hey, take this course, you're magically going to have all these jobs. And we know that's not the case. And the reason why I asked the question too, because it's just like a vanity metric, right? Like hey, I have get this cert on the back, it doesn't mean anything. And that's the difference between when you have, if you're interviewing 10 people, those people that are at the top, right? They've worked on this development. And it might not just be the skill of sales, right? It's not just taking a course. There's multiple pieces to it. And a lot of sales pros understand that when they show up to the call, how are they showing up? How are they conducting themselves? What do they look like? It's all of these pieces that combined are going to make you successful. It's not, hey, I learned from this person, I took this course, I read this book. Those are all principles or frameworks to understanding to get better. But the ones that are very successful, you can judge that book by its cover because you can read them. No different than when you watched a very confident man or woman walk through a room, right? You know who they are. Yeah. And that is something that makes the sales individual very successful. And to your point, it's one of the reasons why I love UCM as well. I've been following those guys for a while and why I jumped in there, because it is a whole aspect of, the development. And there are so many younger reps in there. It's the best place for them. And there's a lot of reps out there struggling. That's the best place for them as well, because you can you can learn your tonality and know scripts, but if you can't find a job, you can't make money.
Yeah.
You can't present yourself properly, you can't get a job, so you can't make money. But that's where being really good at a skill gives you that confidence as well. So you are that rep that shows up. Hey, this is who I am, unapologetically me. This is my skill set. This, I'm good. Boom, boom. You ask me a question. If it's something that's a question that seems like it might be giving me a negative point of view from yours, I'll own it. Right. That, again, that's unapologetically me. Hey, Scott, why did you fail on your last job? Well, Nate, I didn't pay attention to my sales manager, but I really learned from that. We butted heads. I didn't listen to him. That's really my fault. Blah, 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 blah. Now that's not real. That's me just kind of saying, but me owning that, right? Like that those type of things are really important to do. And I think that's the biggest thing in this industry. And I was actually coaching another business owner a couple of weeks ago, and he's got a business partner. And he goes, Scott, how, you having a business partner in the past and currently, how do you make that work? And I said, it's just like any sort of family relationship. And I think between companies, offers, sales reps, marketing, the whole online space, I really think I need some changes that go on that look at it. Hey, let's say you brought me on to WarriorBabe.
Mm-hmm.
Nate, I'm going to trust you 100%. I want you to know that everything I do, I'm going to think about WarriorBabe first, you second, the client third, me last. Because I know you are thinking about WarriorBabe first, me second, client third, you last, right? If I trust that that's your thought process, you trust that that's my thought process, we both are going to go out there. We have each other's back. We're going to go out and win. And that's a very powerful place to be. And I don't see that in fulfillment or placement a lot in the industry right now. And it really, really sucks. And I hope that something like that changes very, very soon. And I can tell you're doing that at WarriorBabe. So congratulations.
Well, I appreciate that. It's a battle that there's a lot of battles out there, and it's the one that I want to fight. I've been on the other side of being a sales rep and hating who I work for because they're only focused on money, right? Or they're only focused on making themselves look really good or whatever. And so how can I position myself now that I am in a position of power, for lack of a better word, really becoming that servant leader that I aspire to be. We chatted about our spiritual beliefs before we hopped on this, and that's what I want to embody, right? How do I lay down my life for my team so that they can lay down their lives for our prospects? Yep. And when we have that mentality, man, we can change the trajectory of a business, or we can, honestly just see massive growth as well. Like WarriorBabe has, since implementing a few simple processes, has grown 40% in the last month. Like,
congratulations,
which is stupid, right? Like, that's crazy. And that's because the salespeople on my team care about what we're doing, and they're bought into their why, they're bought into the company's why, and it makes my job really easy. And so if salespeople out there, if they can just buy into their own why and the company's why that they're working for, they will be so much more successful. And back to the course thing, it's just if I lead with a course, what if that business owner had a really bad experience with a salesperson that went through that same course?
Yeah.
You're just instantly from the gate shooting yourself in the foot.
Correct.
And so take the concepts from that course and apply them.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, I talking about, you apply a lot of the principles from your spiritual life, and same thing, right? It's one of the things where Jesus says, drop everything and follow me. A lot of people's perception of that is, hey, drop my money, drop my house, drop my job, and just go walk in a desert. No, drop your ego, drop who you are, right? And embody that, and you do that, and pick up your cross every day, right? Sacrifice the flesh, push hard every day. And you're being a leader. I actually did a post today talking about, I felt like quitting, but then I remembered who was watching, right? And it's a lion with a little lion cub looking back. And you're doing that for your team every day. And I think that's amazing. And I guess I want to ask one question before we jump off here. Are you guys actually looking for a space? Because I might have a rep or a few I could actually connect you with.
Yeah, always.
Okay,
Always.
and you could always, I should have said you could always say no there, but I was just kind of curious. A couple people popped in my mind as we were talking.
Yeah. Yeah, we're always looking for new talent. We're currently really bolstering our SDR team.
Cool.
So we are in the process of trying to bring on a SDR manager so that we can really dial in that process. Because I know where my shortcomings are, and it's in a position that I've never done. Like I've done my own setting, like personally as a closer, but I've never been an SDR, right? I've never been an appointment setter, and that's pretty untypical in this industry. It's just like usually where people start and they try to become a closer. But I think in all honesty, I think the SDR position is a little bit more important than closing. And that's, again, I like to push the envelope a little bit, but I do believe that like full on. And so getting people that are successful. And I think you interviewed a gal that's very successful as an SDR.
I was just going to say, yeah, Erica Kaping, and she very, very successful and helps people become setters. So I actually connect you guys, maybe she doesn't work for you, but at least she's going to know some people, but she's amazing. So that's going to be a really good connection. I'll do that right after we get off here. And I was just curious. So I might connect you with a couple other individuals because getting to know you more, it would be an honor and privilege to work for somebody like you and WarriorBabe. And I think there's a lot of people out there, again, knowing the culture rather than just the brand. And I think it's an important reason why you network with people and, why, like UCM, like you said, why it's so really good for some people because they can connect. Talking with you, they're going to go, oh yeah, that is a company I'm going to run through a brick wall for. Right. So I'm gonna do everything in my power to get up to a level to where they're going to hire me. That's a huge motivational thing. Or they're going to meet you and be like, dude, I hate this dude. I would never go work for them. That's garbage. Right. But that's everyone's thing. Right. But again, that's being unapologetically you and who you are. So awesome.
How can I reciprocate? Like what can I do to help bolster what you're doing? Because I love what you're doing here on this podcast. I don't know much about your business, but how can I reciprocate?
I guess if they're, some of the people I do want to interview, right, going forward is going to be some reps. And also I'm looking for sales managers like yourself. Also the aspect of the point of view of some reps, because I've done a lot of the business professionals, people have their own businesses, some of the coaches of those, also possible headhunters. So if there's anybody that is helping business owners and things of that nature, I think that would be a really good interview because that's a role that I've never had.
Yeah.
I want to get their point of view, of doing recruitment and things of that nature. So yeah, any recruiters you might know would be kind of great to make that connection with, would be awesome. And Nate, I would love to have you on a second time too. I know we covered a lot of different stuff, kind of some stuff surface level, some stuff we went kind of deep with. So I would love to do this again at any point. So
yeah, this was an absolute pleasure, and I will definitely connect you with some headhunters, recruiters. And for those of you out there that are in an offer and you're getting recruited, that's a compliment, right?
Yep.
Like a lot of business owners, they should be happy that their people are getting recruited because that means they have good talent. Instead of it, being like a steal thing, but like, what are you going to do to keep them? Right. And so I can definitely connect you there. Would love to be back on. I loved our conversation. I think being able to ask you questions as well will be good going forward too. But I, honestly, like what you're doing here is really unveiling all of the, I don't know, ick from the industry that needs to go away. It needs to die. The ick needs to die. So I appreciate having me on, and I know we're pretty short for time right now. So thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome. And we all do need to be better. I mean, that's really it. And if we're not talking about it, we're going to let the container happen and things of that nature. So I really appreciate that. So awesome having you, Nate, and looking forward to it again.
All right.